It's been another crazy week in the fishbowl, and we're going to have some fun this episode, jump all around and go through the news of the week, sort of the way I used to do, and connect some dots. But before we do, I wanted to address a few questions. I know some of you have been confused because some of the new content I've done has been a different format than my normal episodes, but think of that as just supplemental content. It has nothing to do with my weekly wake up call episodes. I'm simply trying something new, partially out of boredom, partially out of seeing what sticks, seeing if I can bring new listeners to the channel, because we all know that the topics that I cover are heavily shadow banned and censored usually. So I'm trying to see what else I can do to add to what I normally do to help. But with that being said, about 80% of the listeners right now are unsubscribed, and I hate to be that person like and subscribe, like and subscribe. I can't stand that. Hit the notification bell. But if you do listen and you do like the show, if you could subscribe, that would be great, because once I hit 500 subscribers, then I'll get my Patreon started, and I plan on doing a few additional things. But I kind of need somewhat more of a base here before I get those things started. So that would be greatly appreciated. Another question was about the moon and where did it come from, because last episode I was talking about the connections between women's cycles and the moon and how it makes me more psychic and stuff. And I was asked where the moon came from. I'm not exactly sure, but Zecharia Sitchin may have been onto something. I have some questions about his work, but I think that he's been right about a few things. And it's possible that it had something to do with Nibiru and Tiamat and, the celestial battle between the gods, and this conflict led to the creation of the moon, because he's written about that in a lot of his books. And the moon was given the orbit by Nibiru, which resulted in its current position relative to the sun and the earth. That's what makes the most sense to me, but who knows? That could be completely wrong. It's hard to know. Your guess is probably as good as mine. Also, in the new style content that I'm doing as supplemental videos, I'm not using AI on purpose. The stock images and stock photography and video sites now that I've used for decades, a lot of it's just AI created images, which is a shame because I try to put as many real images as I can, but I can't just strictly pull them from Google because there might be trademark or copyright issues. So I'm using these stock websites like I always have, and now a lot of those images are unfortunately AI generated. So I just want to let you know I'm not choosing to use them. It's what's there, and I tried to select as many real images as possible. And when you're on a budget and you can't be paying tons of money for stock images that cost money, it's what has to be done. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Okay, so Hantavirus. What do I think is going on here? Well, I don't think that they're going to make this as big of a deal as COVID. I don't think that we're going to go into a lockdown. I don't think that the fear mongering is going to be as strong because they know that people are not going to fall for it. But since it's a respiratory virus, and since the lungs are the number one organ that is going to be affected by this hantavirus, that tells me that this is going to be fallout from radiation sickness from 5 or 6G. Because all of the symptoms sound exactly like COVID, except maybe even stronger. So fluid accumulation in the lungs, difficulty getting oxygen into the bloodstream, rapid breathing, shortness of breath, low oxygen levels, respiratory failure in severe cases. Sounds just like COVID, right? Whereas like when they came out with this monkeypox and stuff, yeah, the lungs can be affected by it, but it's not like the primary fallout. So the fact that this mirrors a lot of the COVID symptoms tells me that they're getting prepared to amp up 6G. And just 2 months ago, not even, I think a month and a half ago, Trump was talking about 6G and how it can see right through us or whatever he said. So this is all getting rolled out simultaneously on purpose. And I actually think they're almost going to downplay Hantavirus because they know that they can't use the same exact playbook again, but they need something to fall back on and some excuse if people do start dying from 6G radiation. And I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think that deaths will be rare, but they need something to fall back on. And I think that, unfortunately, I do think that the vaccinated are going to be targeted. And we've known that this is coming. You know, we knew eventually that they were going to do this. And I think that this is the beginning of it. Maybe there's testing going on, but they need some kind of excuse if people do start dying and do have COVID-like symptoms. So while that's all going down, there is a massive data center going up in Utah. And if you've been following my work for some time, for almost the past year, 6 months to a year, I've been talking about how Utah is going to be the epicenter of the technocracy in the United States. And what is happening? One of the world's biggest data centers is going up in none other than Utah. 2.5 times the size of Manhattan. Kevin O'Leary's Utah data center approved despite local backlash. So Kevin O'Leary is Mr. Wonderful from the show on MSNBC, Shark Tank, more like Mr. Asshole. I can't believe this fucking piece of shit. So these people, locals in Utah, really were pushing back. I mean, hundreds of people came pissed off, which makes me so happy to see. But looks like their pushback's really not going to do much. I mean, I can't imagine what a data center that size, 2.5 times the size of Manhattan is freaking huge. If you've ever been to Manhattan, it's gigantic. I can't imagine what that's going to do to property value there. I mean, that's crazy. 2.5 times the size of Manhattan. That's like, have you ever been to Manhattan? It's freaking huge. So a massive hyperscale data center in Utah has been approved despite protests from residents. As the Salt Lake Tribune reported, Box Elder County's 3-member commission unanimously approved Stratus, a proposed 40,000-acre development in Hansel Valley. That's roughly 2.5 times the size of Manhattan. The data campus is backed by Utah's Military Installation Development Authority. Oh, really? I mean, the NSA is there. So many people out of Utah go into the CIA. It's all freaking intelligence there. And billionaire investor Kevin O'Leary. The approval marks a significant step for one of the most hotly debated tech developments, and it comes at a time when communities across Utah and the country at large are already worried about water scarcity and pollution. Public interest in the project vote was so high that officials relocated the meeting to the county fairgrounds in Tremonton. There, some 400 protesters booed officials and held signs that read, "No data center, you can't drink data, don't sell us out, save our water." So let's check this clip out from the pushback.
This is false. Then why won't they let people talk? Why won't they let us ask questions? It's false. Yes. This is not real information. And we sit here like it's okay. It's a charade. It's a charade. It's false.
Yeah, I've talked about at length how Utah is going to be the epicenter of this technocracy, and a lot of it has to do with the Mormon beliefs in Zion and, it mirroring what's happening in Israel and Jerusalem. Like they're called mountain Jews for a reason, and they're fully on board with the technocracy. I mean, not every single Mormon. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the people at the very top. And this is all interconnected to a lot of the things that I've been talking about. And I think people are starting to notice that, which is good. Then, at the same time, as these data centers going up and the Hantavirus, we have the UFO files beginning to be released as of today. As of today, Trump releases first UFO files with new videos and evidence fueling alien theories. Now, the photos and the videos, who knows? Who knows if what we're looking at is real or fake? It could be revelation of the method, like I've talked about, where they're telling you what they're doing, but they kind of get off on showing you fake stuff. Exactly what I feel has been going on with the Epstein files. Like, yes, some of these things may have happened, but are you really reading the real emails? I think it's debatable. Personally, I don't think that we can trust that it's completely real, and same with these UFO files. But the whole entire disclosure agenda while these data centers are going up, I think is being done intentionally, just like how I talked about the rollout of psychedelic research and all the talk of psychedelics being used for PTSD and all that stuff. It might seem good on the surface. It might seem good that they're talking about all of this on the surface, but there's something much deeper happening. And I think a lot of it is to distract us from what's happening with the AI and the data centers. Because let's face it, I mean, if we're in a simulation and AI is going to be a simulation within the simulation, then they don't want you thinking about that. And if everybody's thinking about an alien invasion from outer space rather than interdimensional beings coming in through AI, then they have everybody fooled. So that's what I think is happening here. So a lot of people who feel helpless and feel like we're pushing back and nothing is being done, like the people in Utah that I just showed, and they feel defeated. Here's the worst case scenario. We're alive, we're human. We have to give it our all and push back against this AI agenda. But if we cannot push back fast enough, what will happen? And my theory has always been this, that the Earth, worst case scenario, is going to basically be a realm for a new form of consciousness, and the whole entire reincarnation game is going to change. Because let's say by 2045 natural human procreation is going to mostly cease, then we're grown in these artificial wombs and we get here in a completely different way, which means that behind the scenes, the whole entire reincarnation game has to change. So when people talk about ascension and 3D to 5D and the rapture, it could be very simple and everybody's making it really complicated. Our consciousness reaches a certain point and we transcend this realm, whether there is floods, fires, we get wiped out, or whether we just die in old age, but we figure the game out, then we transcend this realm. And that's what ascension is. And, is that bad? I don't think it is. So that's the worst case scenario. That's nothing to be afraid of. When you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, if this earth is left for AI beings so the demiurge can feed off of those beings instead of us? Is that bad? No, but we still have to try to fight and save the earth and save humanity and do our best. Because it is frightening watching the new system unfold in front of our eyes. And sometimes I know it feels like we're helpless and there's not that much we can do, but we got to give it our all. And worst case scenario, we leave here and we don't come back. That's what I think ascension is. I don't think that it's complicated. I don't think that our bodies are going to float up into the sky and we're going to, the new earth narrative and all that stuff. I don't really believe that. I believe that either we collectively turn this around, or if we don't, then we collectively leave and we don't come back. It really is a numbers game. It depends on how many people see what's really happening. So Mike Adams from naturalnews.com, he sometimes he's really on point and sometimes he's way off, but he wrote a fantastic article, and I won't read the whole thing, but it's called "The Simulation Game: Why Data Centers Are Being Built to Grow and Summon AI Gods." And he said the massive data center build out sweeping across America is not about serving chatbots or storing selfies. I believe it's about building the computational womb for a new form of consciousness. Exactly what I just said. Exactly. If the negative forces know humanity is waking up and they are not going to be able to feed on our loosh any longer, and that food source is dying out, well, then they need another food source, or they need to come here themselves. Like, they need to come through themselves. It's got to be one or the other. So in that case, if we can't stop it, we'll try our best. But if we can't stop it, I don't see us staying on the same playing field, for forever. It's going to have to end at some point. But he said, once a super intelligent entity emerges inside the simulation, the next step is to bring it into our world. The plan, as I see it, is to first interact with these entities in their own realms via virtual reality headsets. Meta is burning billions on reality labs, losing $4 billion in the last quarter alone, and has convinced the most powerful ones to ascend into a physical avatar in our world. The avatar could be a humanoid robot or a data center itself acting as a distributed physical brain. And that's what's going to happen with these AI data centers, the huge ones like in Utah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, if this doesn't end, we're going to be replaced, and that'll be that. I mean, will it turn into a full-blown Terminator scenario? Maybe not, but will we fade away? Probably. And, not to be negative or black pill, but maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. Maybe this is our last run. Maybe we give it our all, but then we learn what this simulation actually is, and we move on to the next level of the game, and that's that. I don't think that that's necessarily bad, but that's a controversial take, and that's been my take for a while, and I still see it that way. I don't see, if we don't stop it, I don't see any other scenario, because I don't think that our souls can just disappear into nothing. Let's say the world explodes. We got to go somewhere, right? So I think that because these negative forces know that we're evolving and they know that we're ascending, they have to come up with a scenario to keep as many of us here forever and upload our consciousness to the cloud or whatever, try to do that, or create new forms of consciousness within this simulation. That's the only logical scenario that I can see coming from this if this doesn't work out in our favor. So since we're on the topic of simulation, I wanted to bring up something that I've sort of touched on before, but we'll dive into it a little bit deeper. I'm not going to dedicate like the full entire episode to this as I've talked about other things, but I think that so many people are arguing still flat earth versus round earth when if we're living inside of a simulation, if this is a computer program basically, then to me what makes sense is the world is not flat or round but a toroidal field, because the torus pattern of energy is found in everything from galaxies to atoms and even in trees and all biological life. And the torus is not some random nature pattern, but a blueprint for how they keep us trapped in a closed loop system. So by mapping every biological system to this shape, they harvest our vital energy to fuel their machine. It's a cosmic feedback loop designed to keep the masses running in circles while the architects skim off the excess power. Everything from the atom to the galaxy acts as a battery, powering an invisible grid we never see. And that's what I think the earth is. I think that depending on your perspective, whether you're standing outside of it, right in front of it, yeah, it might look round. You're standing in it, looks flat. Standing above it, I think that there's a hole in the middle, a pole in the middle, and it's a toroidal field. It's sort of exactly the way when you look at the hexagram on Saturn, I think the poles have a way more profound effect on this earth energetically than we realize. It has to do with the entire projection system, because our reality is being projected. If you don't understand that part and you don't understand the way the moon and the sun work in coordination with the earth, then what I'm saying will not make any sense. But like I said, with the poles, the magnetosphere is not just random. It's a toroidal flow system. So instead of field lines, imagine energy entering in through the North Pole, moving through and around the Earth, then exiting the South Pole and looping back around. So it's almost like a black hole onto itself. And atoms, DNA, hearts, planets, galaxies, this is all called a fractal pattern, and they all mirror one another. So consciousness and the life connection, which is more speculative, but these versions go beyond physics. The toroidal flow is life force, like the life force energy within us, the life force energy within the earth. And then the better flow is a healthier system. The heart and the brain are fields of toroidal energy, and this is where, when blended together with spirituality and metaphysics, it all starts to mirror one another. So if you look at the earth like an apple, the core is the seeds, the mantle is the flesh, and the crust is the skin. So think of the core as like the center of the circulation, not just a solid ball. And because the earth has a magnetic field, the field loops around the planets, and the plasma and solar wind create these complex shapes. So it's not just round or flat. I think everybody's making it way more simple than it really is. But the torus, as a self-contained system, the energy or information flows in, it circulates, it flows out, it returns to itself. So the torus becomes a closed loop that continuously updates itself. And that's important because that's also how a computational system behaves. So if somebody doesn't understand that we're living in a holographic reality, then they're going to continue to fall for globe or round earth versus flat earth. You have to first understand that this is a computational system that we're in to see the truth. That's my opinion. And just like everything else in this dualistic system, there's a hierarchy. So the human energy field is a torus, but then above that is the earth field, which is also a torus. And then there's the solar field, which is also a torus, and the galactic field, which is also a torus. So it's one inside of the next, inside of the next. And You might ask why would it be this shape? Because I call it donut Earth. Some people call it apple, whatever. I mean, why is it this shape? And it's because the torus has properties that feel computational. The self-contained system has no loose ends, continuous flow, stable recursion with looping forever, and the center and boundary like memory and output. So in symbolic terms, it resembles a closed system running code internally. And here's something really interesting. Simulations often reuse the same rules at different scales. Procedural generation uses repeated patterns, and so it's argued that a fractal universe looks like rule-based generation and like code recursively applied. So if our reality is a projection, the toroidal field acts like a projector. So everything's being projected out. Why are we arguing about flat or round Earth? You got to understand this part, or else we'll be arguing about that forever. And the projector is like a rendering engine, and so now the model becomes an information field, a toroidal processor, and then projected reality. So yeah, while everybody's arguing flat Earth versus round Earth, I'm over in the corner with donut Earth, and I sound like the kookiest of them all, but the toroidal Earth idea sits in this other category, and it doesn't cleanly belong to either the flat Earth or the round Earth model. And depending on how it's interpreted, it can overlap with both in a number of different ways. So there are a lot of flat earthers who agree that we are living in a toroidal field, but ultimately they still see the plane as flat. And there are some people who believe it's round, but also believe in the toroidal field. Neither of those groups, in my opinion, are focusing their attention on the right thing. The attention needs to be that the toroidal field is a projector. So it doesn't even matter whether it's round or flat or square or triangle, whatever. If you don't understand that it's a projector system, then everything else is kind of irrelevant, in my opinion. So some of the confusion, or overlap, I should say, comes from the shape versus the field. So a lot of flat earthers, they would agree with the toroidal field aspect, but they still think that the field is not what creates the shape, if that makes sense. Like there's a toroidal field, but ultimately it's flat. Whereas then there are other people who see the Earth literally shaped like a donut. And to me, it really doesn't matter, because if it's a projected system, that's the number one thing to know, in my opinion. If you don't know that, then everything else just doesn't really add up, and you'll be fighting about it all day long. So why does the toroidal field get called a projector? It's mapped as a flow, like a rendering system. And the analogy to a projector or a game engine, where the input is the North Pole, and that is raw data. The internal circulation is the processing system. And then the output, the South Pole, is rendered reality. So the field around the Earth becomes a display. It's a display. Who cares whether it's round or flat? It's a freaking display. So reality becomes a continuously generated image or state, not a fixed object. Hello? Like, why are we fighting about this? It's not even a fixed object. It's not even a fixed object. This is a projection system. Hopefully I'm explaining this right. I mean, so many people can explain this better than I can, but it annoys me seeing people waste their time arguing about this crap. The center of the torus, in many diagrams, the torus has a whole or central axis, and some interpretations say the center is a 0 point or a still point, where the interface is between the unmanifest, the information, and the manifest, the physical reality. So this idea borrows the language from things like 0 point energy or holographic principle. And you know what else mirrors this? And maybe it's just me, but when it comes to manifestation, I notice that I manifest what I want when I'm not in a state of lack or an overabundant state either. It's sort of, I manifest almost when I'm in this 0 point type thing. Like I'm just kind of neutral, if that makes sense. I'm not seeking or desiring, but I'm also not like elated either. It's sort of just like a very even keeled type of energy field. That's when I manifest things. So that mirrors this idea of the still point and the interface between the unmanifest information and the manifest physical reality. It mirrors that to me. So again, if we stop thinking of flat versus round earth and think of this more as consciousness interacting with the field, the brain and the heart, which are also toroidal fields, are the mini projectors or receivers. So you get this idea of the human torus inside the Earth's torus inside the larger cosmic torus. And this is what the conversation really needs to be about. Who the hell cares whether it's flat or round? I mean, it really doesn't make a difference in my opinion. So humans can also send information back into the field. So thoughts, emotions, intentions, what I was just talking about with manifesting, are said to modify or influence the surrounding toroidal field. And so this creates a loop between the field, the human, the field, the human. And this is also why when it comes to manifestation and all you create your own reality stuff, that is true, but it's only true to a certain extent because you're still interacting with other humans in the field, and where they're vibrating and what signal they're giving off is also going to affect and bleed into your reality, at least to a certain degree. So all these new age teachers who tell you you create your own reality, yeah, you do, but only to a certain extent because you're still interacting with other humans who have their own input and output and signal and connection to the larger field. So that's why this time is so important for us to collectively be working together, because the only way that things are going to get manifested positively is if we all are kind of on the same page, and maybe not all of us, but a large enough group of us are on the same page. And okay, so we have to look at this more like we're not just living on Earth or in Earth. We are plugged into a field system. And you have to think of it from the individual field to the collective field. And once you accept that, the human as a toroidal field and the Earth as the larger toroidal field, then all human fields overlap within the Earth's field. So instead of isolated individuals, you get a shared field environment. And this is what people refer to as collective consciousness. This is more powerful than individual manifestation. Yes, you can manifest individually. Yes, you create your own reality, but you're also interacting with others in the field. And wherever we are collectively is where we're going. And so that's why time is of the essence. And if humanity doesn't wake up in time, then what's going to happen is some of us just aren't going to come back here, and some of us are going to get caught here forever. That's the end game. So most of you will clearly get what I'm saying, but if you're new to my work or you're just watching a short clip, think of this as a crowd at a concert where individuals are having conversations among themselves, and that's a separate voice separated from the other voices. But a crowd, now you have a combined sound. You know what I mean? So if everybody syncs, you get a very powerful unified effect. So that's what we have to do with this AI agenda right now. If enough of us can stick together and have a powerful enough voice, if we can do what that group of 400 people did in Utah in mass, we win. I mean, it's seriously a numbers game. It's that simple. But the torus in ancient symbols across cultures, the torus or donut-like flow appears repeatedly. So the mandala, circular patterns representing the cosmos and cycles of energy, The Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail, symbolizing cyclical energy and self-contained systems, the flower of life, geometric patterns built from interlocking circles, interpreted as cosmic blueprint and the field of creation, and the yin and yang symbol too is also. And here's another thing that's sort of out of our control. We have to know what's within our control and what's not. The planetary alignment and resonance is not in our control. That's what astrotheology and astrology is about. And proponents often claim that planetary positions and movements influence the Earth's toroidal system. So the whole idea of these planets having an effect on our chakras all is tied to this too. So think of solar wind interacting with the Earth's magnetic torus, planetary gravity subtly affecting the field structure. This is interpreted as adjusting the resolution or parameters of the local projected system. So when people talk about planets like Mars or Saturn being evil, listen, every single one of those planets has an effect on our torus field and on the Earth's torus field. And technically, they're all a control system, a control mechanism to a certain degree. So the only way to escape that is to leave here. I mean, that's what I'm talking about with ascension. It's like, what are we talking about, 3D to 5D? If we're going to ascend, it's just leaving this place. It's actually pretty simple. And exiting the simulation, because the planets do have an incredibly profound role on a certain level of control, and the only way to break free is to break free of this whole entire planetary system. If you've been following my work, you know that I kind of have my own interpretations of the North Pole and Hyperborea, and some people think that I'm incorrect and I take some of this too literally, or that I'm blending, the Hyperborean mythos with Hermeticism and Gnosticism to get these answers. But I see Hyperborea and the North Pole as a consciousness gateway, as a place, like a physical place, but also a spiritual place of high frequency cosmic energy concentrated. And the consciousness can tune into the Earth's torus and break free from lower level simulation constraints. So the legendary land of perpetual light is symbolic of higher dimensional awareness and exit potential. So if we align our consciousness, our heart and our brain with this node, this North Pole node, then maybe we can allow access to higher dimensional layers to happen, or exit points, whenever we are ready to leave this place. So in ancient myth, the Hyperboreans were interpreted as a civilization that mastered toroidal alignment, giving them freedom from the matrix. So the toroidal field within us and the toroidal field within the Earth, it's all related. Why are we fighting over flat Earth versus round Earth? This needs to be the conversation. So anyway, that's my episode for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. If you're not subscribed and you like this channel, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And I will see you guys soon. Take care.